Sorry. See twice.
it in the context of the super vital, let's say, basic standards like IFC and relating it via the BSD. So use case management is really a vehicle or an approach to define your use cases, standardize them in a, or let's say not standardize, but elaborate them in a collaborative way, bringing them into the process and making use of them in the context of the established standard. Okay, perfect. So, so taking this further, or what do we have as an established standard to actually define use cases? Obviously, the IDM, the ISO 29481, or is really the starting point for any use case. Also, what do we have in a use case? We have like all the roles and processes which are defined together with the process maps, and are kind of detailed in the part 1 and part 2 with the interaction framework. And of course, we have as well the part 3, which is more referring to the exchange requirements. So really, this is like an established standard, the established way of thinking of how use cases are defined and described for quite a while now. And so this is really the starting point of the use case management, and this is like fully implemented into the CMS. So whenever you set up use case, and you will see it later in the display of the platform, you will see how this is actually implemented. So and just to take it further, of course, it's as well fully addressing all other norms and standards that are relevant to this, or whether it's the level of information need or the whole ISO 19650 process and so forth. So it's really like a fully running on the set of standards that are relevant. So if you are an institutional body like any ministry or so, where if you would like to make sure that your use cases are produced in a standardized way, or we have made sure that all those aspects are taken care of, and that the development of your use cases are really following the state-of-the-art standards. So?
Apologies, we lost again this.
Okay, cool. So I think that's probably aware to everyone. Or we have the IDMS basis. We are fully ISO 19650 orientated, and as we have heard as well from Yannick, or we need further classifications like for roles and other processes. But however, we are really pretty set in this, and I will show this in the platform in channel. So what are we actually talking about, or how does it then look like, or in the actual application? So what we have is, as just mentioned, or we have like the IDM core with the use cases and the process definition and the exchange requirements in the at the core. But of course, we have like an administrative side where we can add metadata, or we can say who has produced the use case, to which domain does it belong, what kind of release level does it have, or all these kind of additional information to versioning it properly we have. And then we have, of course, it completely structured that we can export it into IDS and giving it into the market that it can be used in the value chain. So that's how the setup is. And I just show a little video of one use case, or to give a bit the context. And if you use the QR code, you should actually get to this particular use case. So what you get in the end, or as result, or you have your collaboration happening. People are getting together. What do we want to define? What is our process? In this case, we want to have the right information for the reinforcement, and you can define it on the use case management platform with all processes and all exchange requirements, and you can export it into the IDS, and then you can actually give it into the whole design process and execution process, and use it as well as a checking basis, as we have seen from Min, for example, on quite a few projects, or that you can then check against your requirements. So this is really like from an end-to-end perspective. And at this stage, or I would switch into and I have it in the slides to send it around later, but I would switch to the platform as such. So basically, when you log on to the platform, or you will arrive at this quite extensive here lists and filters of what is already all in there. But I'm not going to bore you with this, just to say that there is as well a link to an introduction site. There is a training website. There is our contact information and so forth. But let's go into the use case that we just have shown. And as mentioned, you have the metadata here, right? Or it's how far is it developed? Where is it actually coming from? And what else that you have now is, this is really like the front end, where once the use case has been defined in a collaborative process, or this is how it looks like in the CMS, where the roles, the process map, and the exchange informations are actually brought together to visualize it as a complete use case. You have as well a download button here. So if you go here onto the download, you get a complete documentation of the CMS. It's exported as a PDF. So everything that you have been bringing in before, or it's exported in a structured way. You have all the information available. You have all the references available. Everything that has been brought into the use case is put into this file, and it comes with a zip with all the attachments. In this case, we have the process map coming with it. So this is really the front end, where if I am, for example, a ministry or any like standard body, like we have the VDI from Switzerland quite strongly participating, or if I want to push my use cases into the market, I can actually make them available as machine readable basis, including all the descriptions for which role has to do what and when in which stage, including the machine readable exchange requirements with an IDS file to download it. So this is really the front end of things. And what you have then, when you go into the co-creation space, you go to the back end of the use case management. And now we're really like, and now you have to kind of take this shift with me, or if you are in a room, or you are a chapter, or you are a company that is actually developing use cases. I'm looking to Steen, or you have shown your use case yesterday, or you have to get your head around, how do I document and how do I actually produce this use case? So what you have is, you have here a complete CMS where you can do that. So there is predefined containers that actually refer to already established standards that you can bring in your use case in a way that they are, for example, IDS readable later, because the IDS has a metadata structure which is already implemented here. So once you select your definitions, for example, you can move over here, and you have your for example here disciplines, and you choose, for example, the Omni class, which we have already pre-implemented, or you can go for the REBA scope of work, or for the Hawaii, or whatever, DIN 276 or stuff like this, or it's already there. You just need to put it in, and then you can develop your whatever use case that you have on the basis of those classifications that are there. So, and in this backend, now you then have the possibility to develop your text, develop your content, develop your way of working, and you can actually do this in a markup way, that if you have a multi-party, which we usually have, or it's not just one person developing a use case, or it's many people working on it, or you can bring everyone together and you have a commentation section, and you can actually collaborate on this. And to give a little bit of outlook, or you see that, for example, the process map it's uploaded here as any kind of visual file, or of course we're looking into the future that the process map can be implemented as a UML, or it's like actually developed in here, but we time and money, it's like it's the one step after each other. So so we're focusing on the BSDD and IDS implementation. So, but to make the jump to a little bit like ahead of the IDS and what we have in the moment, and we saw earlier today, or from other people using, for example, Airtables for the IDS, or tables from in Luxembourg or from their platform, or in the end, it always comes down that you need a kind of IDS editor. And we kind of call this like an IDS editor light, and we are using the Smart Sheets functionality in the end because it has a REST API, and you can actually export from it. Also, in the moment, there is a Smart Sheets table in there, where you can put in all the whatever classes, all the attributes that are necessary, and the references to the p-sets and so forth that can be used. And yeah.
Question at the end or in between?
Just go.
Okay, is it available for everyone, the Smart Sheets?
It's available for everyone. It's part of the if you have a tenant, or I mean it's a bSI service. Still, you need to license it via bSI, and we provide you with the Smart Sheet license included there. So you don't need to worry about the Smart Sheet license. It's included in the package. So so that's really like just to come back, or from the platform, or we have like the front end where you can publish or not publish depending on who you are. If you want to use it internally in your company, you can use, or in your chapter, or it's in development, you have it not published, but you can of course publish it, which is usually the idea on the front end, make it available, have it searchable, have it comparable to other use cases, or even use other use cases to build up your use case, or then looking at the back end, which is really the collaboration space where you can develop your content and develop it fully to IDM standards, to ISO 19650, to IDS, and so forth. So that's really the platform. And just to mention, or there is as well a full English translated training page where you have a lot of like little videos and stuff. And we on the use case management team, or we run a support unit, or you can ask a report if you need anything and stuff. So that's established. So going back to the presentation. Just jumping those slides, as I've already explained this. So where are we now going to take this? And before we open the discussion, how does it actually relate to BSDD and IDS for the in the further context? And that's my favorite slide. It's you need to really know it by heart. So I'm not going to bother you too much about this. Or this is like really our ecosystem, how it's embedded on one side a bit from the value chain, but as well how it's actually embedded into the ecosystem of buildingSMART. But what I would like you to understand is that from one side, of course, we have like the IDM understanding of the use case management at a core, or what I just shown, the platform where you can define your use cases. But of course, you always want to do this from the basis that you can pull the BSDD as a source of the key classifications that you want to use in a use case. Or it totally makes sense. So what we're building in the moment is we're building this link or into the use case management that you can pull the BSDD classifications, and for this we then need a full IDS editor. I'm not saying full, but full IDS editor light, where you then actually can edit the IDS, what we have currently in the Smart Sheet, where it's more like an expert tool and people have to know what they put in the tables. But in future, we really want you to be able to open an interface where you can browse through the entities, and you can actually put together in a more or less visual way of working your exchange requirements in addition to your process map. So that's the second part we're working on, or to get the IDS editor here together. Or of course you can use any, and it's really important to say that, or you can use any of the other existing IDS editors, or whether it's a BIMQ or any other, or it really doesn't matter. You can already import, if you have pre-prepared IDSs, you can import them, of course, as well. So it's really open, and it should not be like a concurrence to the existing editors. But however, we see a need that a certain light editing functionality is important in here. And what you then, and I'm looking to Celine here, or which it's an honor to have you here with us as the lead of our certification program. Where this then becomes interesting is that, of course, if you have done your use case, and let's come back to the perspective, if you are a ministry, for example, you want to make sure that it can be used with the existing software in the market. So what you can do then is, and what the use case management allows you, is to actually check against the practicalities in the existing software. So the first thing that we're validating is, of course, is it consistent to the BSDD and the structures? And the second thing we are then validating is it actually consisting to the software available? And you can even extend this and check it if you have already set up your project and you know you have your team, and this and this and this is the team that is working with this and this software. You can then again check, is the team able to run the use case with the software, like in a pre-set up way to quality manage before you actually start working on. And besides this, or once you have done that and it's everything established, you can then as well publish your use case further. And once you have actually run through the whole process, and then the use case is in use, you can as well use the ideas then for any kind of checking service or checking software that is out there to really check then the use case against its validity. But that's not part of the use case management as such. It's just the foundation laid in the use case management. So,
only question. The UCM certifier, is it only focused via IDS to IFC-based information exchange, or is there also some possibility for an BCF validation? Because we notified that actually have also problems in a common BCF transmission. Some applications doesn't contain everything in BCFs they would have to contain, or they should have to contain.
Okay.
And actually, this would be also interesting to certify.
Okay. I mean, that sounds like a very valuable point, because we want to have end-to-end assurance that everything is really like transported through the value chain. I haven't thought about this, but maybe we can expand on this later. For the time being, we're really certifying the IFC generation from the software, which is then looking into the validity of the outcome from the native software to the IFC export, whether it's fitting to the use case we have defined as per the IDS that has been generated via in the use case management platform. But thank you again for this that valuable insight. So this is really Mirek, please.
This is just a question.
Go.
If you, by doing so, you're somehow creating a model checking tool. Is that something like that?
Again, or we are not checking, or it's really the market will then have all the model. And thank you for that question. Or the market has and will come up with even more model checking solutions. And if you talk to Min, that just presented in the awards program, or with their model checking against IDS, or I guess that it will be a lot of checking solutions out there. So we are really providing the source in the beginning of the generation of the IDS, and like the early checking whether the software used in the let's say against the IDS that we have generated can be used. So, but it's really not meant as a checking tool in the project process. So it's I think that's totally different. That will be down to the CDEs or the project platforms. I'm sure they're 100% better than what we ever can offer. And maybe a bit of a sideline, I'm looking to Celine again, is that of course we don't only look into the whole software side of it, but we look as well in future, we will look into the competency side. Or we as a buildingSMART International, we have an understanding that the use cases relate to the profiles of people using OpenBIM standards, and not that this is like a really outlaid so precisely in the moment, but we do see a quite how to say an interaction or a relation between those two aspects, the let's say the provision of use cases and the actual competency needed in the market to really adapt or to run those use cases in the.
Sorry,
yeah, please.
Point, because this is really interesting. Already in use case management, there's already a possibility to declare disciplines and to map international disciplines to national disciplines. is it possible to connect also the new in future the certified roles we have also to these disciplines? So we have something like a mapping. This kind of discipline in the international market belongs in the country to this role and belongs to this certified level.
I mean,
then we have a good connection about it.
I mean, in general, I would say that's possible because that's one of the core ideas of the use case management, that you can actually relate use cases to each other. Or if you have a use case internationally defined or nationally defined, I mean, 80% will be the same anyway. Or so what the question is always, what's the difference and what can I make use of, and how can I refine the use case in the process of this comparison. So we really see a great possibility to improve the quality or the quality of the practitioners along the way in this process.
I have a related question.
Yeah,
you mentioned. Sorry,
please.
We can continue.
Yeah, go.
But or we discussed. This is an interesting point. Relation, that's something new. We have seen it that indeed you can relate as a use case. After, I just want to give you a point. If you use this search tool using the keywords, there are a lot of users asking us the same question, how you will relate them. Because if we use reinforcement in this case, you type reinforcement and you will then you will, of course, if it's different, you have to filter the language. So you can see we have a Swiss chapter, we have, I guess, also other chapters. bsMART Germany also have the same reinforcement modeling, the same use case, and how we should avoid double work if you can define them. You can profit them, or you can link them. By linking, you have to ask, of course, authors if you can link these authors. So that's, I think, is the most important aspect to bring those.
I use the term cost, or to give it a bit more flesh here into your question. You're really hitting an important spot here, and I would need to refer to my colleague Thomas to how it actually is connected on the platform, or that you can find the related use cases. Or I'm not 100% aware of how that works, but the point is that it's really the idea that you can find related use cases or in the categories, and that you can build up on them on their content, because you can compare and you can evolve and take things further, as long as they're published. Or if it's not published, then you will not find them. Okay, so to conclude with our perspective, or to show our future developments and where we are putting our money in, or basically, as mentioned, we have the use case management, the established CMS with the tenant system, or where we have a user management with the backend, where the co-creation can happen with all the markup possibilities, and the publishing of the completed use cases, either as human readable documentation in the downloadable PDFs, or as the machine readable documentation in the exportable IDS. Or we will now expand this to link it to the BSDD to obviously make use of the established and validated classifications in the BSDD, plus that we will prepare, or that we will integrate a so-called IDS editor Lite to actually replace the Smartsheet that we have in the moment, to use a more, let's say, higher usability way of working to generate the exchange requirements. So that's really what we're on in the moment, and now I would really like to throw it back to you, and ask to your feedback, from the perspectives of the ones that have already generated use cases at some stage, or whether you have actually contributed to the platform and some of the use cases have been generated here, or whether, like I was very happy to hear from Steen, you have never heard of it before. It's that's totally okay. So we see quite a diverse level of communication, even though it's on Richard Kelly's opening slide. So I really would like to hand this over back to you. So shall we start? Shall we start in the back a little bit? Maybe Stefan, with somebody that is representing a very large owner organization. You're running your total own use case program, very established. Maybe
some can give some brief insights. So I'm Stefan from Swiss Federal Railways. We do have an internal use case management with 472 use cases that are established for our organization. As the largest owner of infrastructure in Switzerland. Having said that, there are 179 public transport companies in a country with only 8 million inhabitants. So you see, it gets quite complicated pretty soon. So our approach was to use the use case management that we had internally and then upload that to the use case management platform to make it available for the public, to make it available for the industry, and to have others to engage into using those use cases and to develop them further. And I think it is a solution that is not easy to use, even though you said that. I mean, that's just one piece of the whole puzzle. And I'll just advise if anyone wants to contribute, and I'll contribute to the other use case as well. It's really, it comes down to having the right people at the right place to build up those use cases. If you have them, then it's quite intuitive from the interface part. But what we see, and that's what I would like to also address from a gentleman that said that before, that generating standardized processes is something that can be quite hard to be accepted by the market. So they should have a level which can be adopted from everyone that can use those use cases. And I think it's maybe not the most valuable thing to interlink use cases between different countries, not because everyone does it differently, but because everyone thinks that they do it differently. So that's something that should be considered.
So you're saying you're running with over 400 use cases. Also, like you really have established a complete framework for this. So I know a little bit. There is a big SharePoint platform behind it, or where everything is stored. And you're saying that it's a really big process to get everyone involved to generate the use cases. But what would you recommend to the bSMART use case management team from your perspective to get this more into traction, to get more traction on the platform? What would be your recommendation?
There are two things. One is added functionality. If you can export IDSs and can use them in your software or in whatever solution you're using it, then that's key. Because the first use case I contributed was, I think, 2019 or something.
Okay.
And I guess the only way you can use it was exporting PDFs, which then just is a cool way of generating PDFs. But in the end, it really comes down to having exchange information to other systems and to other software. And if that works, then that's totally fine. And also just being aware of how you guide the users through the process of generating use cases. I've seen that we put some up there, some from our side. As you said, as I mentioned, we have 475 use cases in our use case management. There were 3 I know there should be more. But also, even if you have some use cases which you use internally and you want them to provide to the public, just think about how you use your semantic information and how you use conventions on naming stuff. There's a good example on the last one. A G book 160. No one's going to know what that is besides me. But that's really a key point in how we use those use cases in our business. So you should really just plan how you want to implement those use cases. Use standardized and a standard reference terminology. be aware that semantic has to be understood by everyone, and then just follow the process and have the right with that.
You have a lot of use cases also regarding to the operations, I think. How do you structure the different stages of operations actually? What's your experience in that inside use case management? Because this was at the beginning something you struggled when we used omni-class stages to have a more international context. But usually in all these stage or process models, operation is one stage, but everyone who's involved in operation knows this is much more complex. How do you deal with that actually?
Yeah, see, that's one more argument to not have internationally linked use cases, or to at least differentiate them between countries, because the way that there is a phase model in Switzerland, which is standardized, which is used, and which is widely known by anyone, and that just says there is one phase of operation. And we have a process framework in place, but that's again an internal process framework with, I guess, let's say 8 or 9 sub-processes, and regarding to what has to be done with the infrastructure and who does what with this infrastructure. And that can then be used when creating the IDM and can be shown on that.
This is this new concept of sub-steps in the process. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much. So that's really valuable insight for us, so because you have a lot of experience in generating the use cases. So, and I totally agree that there is really no need to internationally link use cases, but there is a potential to learn from each other. So there's absolutely nothing needs to be linked. And I guess that's probably one of the challenges that we have, and Yannick was presenting this yesterday as well, or that for some things there are classifications, and for example in Switzerland we have Prolemo, which is like our operations process model, but there is no data model to Prolemo. So it's actually quite a challenge. But from the use case management perspective, obviously we can either use established and already pre-implemented structures on certain aspects, or if you have your own structure, you can always predefine it. And if you do more use cases, it obviously makes sense to one time define your whatever operations, whatever setup that you have, and then you can use it again and again and again on the use case. But can I kind of a little bit open around a bit and say, maybe Stino, you're really experienced IDS generator, having heard from use case management first time yesterday. What's your impression?
On Tuesday, you mentioned it.
Tuesday.
I thought I read something about it a few years ago, but I didn't know such a system exists actually. So all the use cases we use are stored in our own environment, our own company. We would share it, so first it would be interesting to see the different layers of use cases on a very local level, maybe on a department level, on a company level, on a national level. I think I think that would be interesting to dive into actually, and also the connection to actually the modeling software. So from use case to modeling, and then after modeling, I believe the process will be checked, etc. But just get the right properties on the right place in the model, and help the modeler with that. So that's probably also the link with BSI. I think we cannot see that separate actually. So,
I think there's something really interesting. We think actually about to have micro use cases for tasks which get continued all the time in several situations, and we have something like puzzle stones we put together in big use cases that we describe as separate or specific things. And this is more or less something like a tutorial from time to time for people how to make it correctly in the right steps and so on and so on. And then you put this together in over a few use cases where you say how every step is connected to the other and so on. So this could be also a possibility.
I mean, just to follow up on this, I mean, first we do see that there is a function missing in the moment that where you can actually bundle use cases in a larger story. We totally see that, or you have it's more like on a lower level of like a detailed use case, which is like actually executable as a process. So that's how it's let's say put into the use case management as such, but you cannot say, hey, there is like whatever process steps that contains 5 use cases. And I guess that's as well a little bit due to the level of development where we are at the moment. I mean, it's the same with the IDS, or the IDS does not contain any process information or any roles whatsoever in the IDS as such, or it's only in the metadata. Or so we looking into ourselves, or as bSI, are we not able to transport that level of either processes or cluster of what belongs to what, or in neither in the IDS nor in the use case management. So we see this deficiency. That's a very valuable, very valuable feedback. But Steen, to come back on your point, or that I believe that the question is, when you look at the way you were developing your use cases, or would you say this is kind of similar, or is it kind of you used alternative tools, or you see the relation to this, or in the end you say, hey, I don't care where I develop my use case, I just need an editor and I chuck out my IDS and that's it. Where do you see the kind of relation to the use case management?
That's first. The moment is difficult because we're not that far actually. We just think about what do we need to write it out in the PDF and Word.
Mhm.
That's it. We never thought about those kind of advanced ways of sharing requirements and should be sharing knowledge. So I do not have a clear vision yet of that, because this is actually the first time I see those things. So
I have one specific comment regarding the keyword funding as well. When you create, based on our experience, when you, it's also not so easy to find the use case if you're not precise. So it should be maybe use cases be tagged with some keywords at the end if it's related to, it can be existing building nomenclature. You should use a specific keywords, right? So these keywords, in some cases, limited. So it should be maybe more. It's a wish. It's not. It's
Okay.
Second wish is that you allow implement of BPMN processes being imported as a BPMN 2.0. It's a standard like IFC.
Yeah.
And it's open, so you allow all. If you're working on the configurator, so it should be also be possible to import. You agree with that? Because not everyone will work with that, because you potentially have a huge BPMN process that that will cost a lot of time to do it directly in UCM, to model it again. Other way around, I have my BPMN process on my Cavevo or the Camunda, whatever it is. I can export the BPMN to 2.0 and you have it directly.
Because that's forget about the BPMN, and you only have the PDF and the use case management. It happens a lot as a research project.
Okay.
Please could you?
That's a second point.
That's very interesting. So you're saying we not only need an IDS import, but we need a BPMN import to have the UML. Okay, very important. Yes. Okay, interesting.
And what we did in our chapter and also in building room, we used one tool. It's open source, because the Cavevo, it enabled us to make a screenshot of that. But at the same time, since screenshot for big, wide process map, you need to have a very detailed view of some small particle, and that's not possible with a picture. And you need to go through indeed to that BPMN process, and by integrating the link, you go into original to read on the process. We did it that way. That's currently it's not easy to read. Third comment and wish as well again that this even the processes have their own subprocesses. How we connect them.
That's
exactly the same point. That's how we managed to do that with this particle tool, but at the end it's not integrated, and everyone has to get down. The third wish And
That was already
I
free.
know. Sorry. But the Subwish will communicate with
Subwish.
that's the one called Subwish. We spoke with Thomas. He said that will come up. We realized in building room in one particular use case. Probably most of who did it as well, who did this publication of use cases. Some may integrate videos and GIFs because they show some processes like importing, exporting, which you cannot explain with a simple screenshot. That should be some like a guideline. That's a really important use case that we discussed recently.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat them all, but I think they're anyway recorded.
Yes,
we have a recording here. Exactly. So, for me, key takeaway is UML import is an important point because we were so far more like putting this into the backlog or not looking so much into it, or because we thought that as we cannot export it to the IDS anyway, or it is not of so much relevance. But I understand for the generation, for the development of the use case, you really want to have this possibility, and as well to cluster then the processes and sub-processes, or I think then where it becomes more, let's say, handleable. But would you prefer to have like a full UML, BPMN editor in the use case management, or is it more like having an import to import them and then they're there? Everything. We're open for a sponsorship, by the way. Okay, so please, can you just say your name?
Yeah, my name is Emma. I'm from Royal Estonian PhD, an engineering consultancy based in Netherlands. And I'm working as global BIM lead in one of the main business lines. So our involvement or knowledge about the UCM, UCF, I believe at that time, comes to early stages of that. We had a technical director, and there were, some time in between, and we were a bit detached from the activity. So I had conversations with Mike Ramsey, and I knew the cornerstones. And in some time, it was a silence about UCM. Maybe we were not connected with buildingSMART, but for any reason, we continued with that idea.
Yeah.
And we are working on an internal business process mapping system. And it's very nice what I see, that it's more or less the same, although it was just the start phases shared and discussed. And I definitely see advancements here, but two main challenges I see in the current UCM platform to be deployed by us is, first of all, as an engineering consultancy, we consider quite some details in such a process map our technology, our trade secrets. And therefore, I'm representing a business line on Water Marathon. We focus on 3 specific markets, and even within our business line, within the same company, and on some markets, even within the same country and region, we have problems because people do not want to give away those trade secrets. Therefore, and I was talking to Leon yesterday as well, I said, I see the added value of working in an open source international platform, but I do miss a layer that we could keep some details to our own, and we can publish some details in general, because sharing is the power. I do believe that. It's very nice if we have a workable process that we can share a high over shade of that, and then we still have some details that only our people can see, without having actually 2 different domains or servers or platforms. That's one of them. And the second
Can I just answer this briefly? Basically, what we have and what is really important takeaway for us, or we do have a tenant system that allows you to have a complete secret environment, or you don't need to show anything of what you do there, but it's not great like gradable. Like you cannot say like I show half of it and the rest not. So I definitely take this with us to maybe develop something where we can have maybe the use case in general is published, but not the exchange requirements or any whatever aspects. Or so.
Indeed, or if there are instructions, what were brought to the discussion.
Yeah,
That one was the thing. So instructions are the things I could totally imagine we keep for ourselves.
Okay.
And that's indeed the key is the relation, because we already have our platform.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's not perfect. If we want to keep it all for ourselves, we could develop it ourselves as well.
But just to say, the tenancy system is there, and it's just a question of how you set it up, but it's either public or not public.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The second one comes to the open standards and open formats and everything. That one thing, and particularly IFC is a part of open data, open BIM, all of that. And still, for the water and maritime sector particularly, IFC is not responding well. It's not yet tested, mature, and well, at this moment we cannot rely on the IFC schemes. So I was wondering, how would the certification work based on other open formats?
Yeah. I mean, the advantages, or I mean, if you have any kind of information that you would like to bring into the process, obviously you need some kind of IFC entity or something to relate it to. So if there is like no entity whatsoever, it's really difficult. Because then within the process of using native software to generate any IFC, you have to have a certain logic to relate something to. So
that understood, but that was also the idea to move what I understood in this summit from MVD to IDS to actually allow IFC 4.3 as the main base, as a high-level base, but be free into formatting IDS, for example, or queries that we want to interact within those different dictionaries. And still, well, also mention some things are nationally differently broken down.
I mean, that's really a key aspect why we believe the use case management is important, and it's important to have a very open and flexible environment to add specific information that is either not yet standardized or it's company specific or whatever, combined with existing standards. So leaving out the question whether the entities for waterways are there or not, or there will be something there that you are using in the moment already, but let's assume there is an entity that you can relate to. Where we see the advantage of the use case management way of thinking is, we believe you always have additional attributes or information that you need. If you look today, we have 2x3 is from 2007, and we still have not certified the import to Autodesk Revit in 2022 from 4x3. So if we take this cycle, forget it. So you need to have a more flexible way to bring your exchange requirements into the process, and taking the core value of IFC that gives you some entity to relate to. So what IDS is really a game changer, and where we see the use case management understanding of an opportunity in this is that if you know what entities you are dealing with, which are kind of established, then you can add on a daily basis other information that you can give via the IDS into the process. So we really see this like duality of stable entity standards that need to be software implemented and certified in the software, and with less information, the better, and everything else around defined in use cases, being brought into the process as something to be ordered, where it can be actually fixed, or this needs to be done by whoever else needs to do it, or with the processes and everything defined, or giving it into this process, into the life cycle of the whole process, and then you run it on an additional layer of information than the IFC as such. So that would really support the whole process.
Why not using BSDD and embedded all the classifications as a classification reference in IFC, and then you can check it?
You can do that, but as said, you still need a strong base. You can use any other dictionary, you can use any other translator, but you need a reference. Otherwise, you need to create everything, a total ontology for yourself, and it is not a thing that a single company should do.
Yeah, but
And the IFC 4.3, yes. Well, I already addressed water and maritime. The only thing that is actually pointed in the IFC 4.3 so far is the ports. And the rest is a total blackout at this moment. That's why we do actually, within even our internal standardization, well, we try to keep it flexible. If we have standards for the data breakdown or whatever, we of course go for that. But if not, we do not intend to make the whole standard by ourselves.
I'm not so inside in waterways. The owners of waterways, do they have requirements they give to you?
Well, they do have some requirements, but well, it is water technology, waterways and resilience, and it's marine works and ports. So it is by itself also very broad. Some of them are very national, waterways, for instance. And yeah, well, it's a very big discussion. So I would say yes, there are things we could translate them, but at the end, how much time do we have to make those standards by ourselves?
Yes, but I think it's because of interaction of dictionaries, there is already a solution for that. You're right, someone has to do this, but without doing it, it's not solvable. It's only a question who do it, but it's solvable from the technical point of view. It's only a question who is doing this.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. So do we have more questions or any other votes? Stefan, yeah, please.
There's just one wish regarding to your first mention. If there is a tenant, if there should ever be a tenant system on such a platform, I would expect the bSI to be very clear about what that tenant system does, because I think I totally get what you want to have, but that's from my point of view, that's totally averse to having open standards. That should be something that should be very clearly addressed by bSI, what that means if a tenant system will be in place in use case management.
I mean, I hope that we have this. Or I mean, are you referring to the standards that are where are we here? That are included, like in the backend, or I'm sorry, maybe I didn't get it.
To the first mention, the gentleman to my right had to have to be able to store content that is private.
Yeah,
that's something that I just, that might be a personal thing. I just don't get that. I didn't get that with the BSD. I won't get it in the future. That's totally averse to the idea of having open standards. And if there will be such a functionality in the use case management, there should be a mention of bSI on how that works and how that's being exported and that presentation.
Yeah. May I give a bit of elaboration on the thing, or don't we have time?
I mean, maybe
take a breakout.
Yeah, maybe we take this into a personal discussion more later. If what I would like to do is to do some significant statistics. So, who has heard of the use case management before? 50%, roughly, a little bit more, 3/4. Okay. So, and who has actually logged in or ever used it in any form? Okay. Who has uploaded a use case? Okay, and who has actually produced a use case with using the use case management as a service to exchange or to work with it on the back end? Yeah, okay. Is that true, Stefan? Don't you produce your use cases outside and then you upload it?
No, I'm in a group with one-place tendering.
Okay. So you have really actually used the back end and used the functionality to generate the use case. So.
There are two ways, indeed. You can use template or you can work directly. So both ways works well.
I have a statistical question.
Yeah.
Who here is from Canada? Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, so can we do that again? Who is
check it.
Who is from Canada and has heard from the use case management before? Ah, okay. 50%, nearly 50%. Okay.
Who is from Switzerland?
Okay, no, I mean because really like to kind of conclude this a little bit, or to really just to take this momentum and see what do we now take from this, or if you let's do more statistics. Or if you would recommend us, we're spending more money on the use case management than on the BSDD and IDS together. So if you think of there's like only like 1% of the people in here, or 2% have actually produced the use case in here. So we have now two options. Or shall we keep the use case management as an editing environment, or to actually generate use cases, or shall we just reduce it to a marketplace to upload use cases that have been developed somewhere else? Can we have some inputs on that?
We should keep both, because we have a working groups. Some of them prefer to work directly,
Okay.
and some others have potential and not. They might be not members, and but still giving inputs. Of course, as our requirements are all the members, but some meeting not regularly, and they come together on an online environment. If they need to have to-dos like work packages, they take it all with them. Some prefer that way, and others prefer to work directly inside. We have even exactly the same two working groups in under construction room, our German construction room. One worked exactly in external in our CD in our cloud, let's say, as a share file, and other works semi and cloud, and at the same time producing results in UCM in the backend. So that's why if you take one thing, you'll have to move to other. And the practicality, both of them works well.
Okay, so did we get some other votes? Who would be pro killing the co-creation space and just using it as a marketplace?
Who is against?
Go. No worries. It saves me 500,000 Swiss francs, so can go on holiday.
Just on that, the UCM, is there a standard below it that describes, like in XML, how you describe the use case, or what's
Yeah, the IDM.
It's IDM.
IDM, fully IDM. It's like 100% IDM implemented. ISO 100%.
I'm just getting where to put the tool you just showed in the ecosystem of other tools. Because in Netherlands we have the ILS configurator, which is being developed, which looks like in the end it will be like this.
Yeah.
I've seen WinQ, I've seen regular, I've seen Tenderly doing
similar things.
So why is buildingSMART developing such a tool?
That's the question.
Because you should mention the standard and give the fundamentals to those kind of tools, maybe deliver and make localized, standardized tools. I'm not sure if it's possible.
It's a really good. That's exactly why we're asking this question. Is it really our job to do this, or and I'm being a little provocative now, or say, why don't we make it compulsory by tomorrow? So from tomorrow, all rooms have to use it to do their use cases. So, and then we see what's happening. Then we're talking. So I guess, and then either it fails, or because it's not good enough, or then it's dead, or we have a rebellion, or we actually make it successful because we get enough traction and we get enough feedback, and people start to use it more, and we can actually develop it, and we get some revenue which goes into the further development. So, but
I can imagine you invest time also to get those tools to talk to those people and make them adopt the standard. Then it will grow.
Yeah. I mean that's the way it goes. So, but that's really the point where we're at now. So either we let it die, or we forget it and we use it as a marketplace, or because we see there is other functionalities coming up that are better, or so forth. But why we have not done this yet is because let me go back to the slide here in the back. Or what we have. So can we do this? And so what we have or in the ecosystem and where it's a bit different. Or if you think of other tools like BIMQ or other IDS editors that we have, or they start later in the process. So it's like things have been done or use cases are understood. It's really about the exchange requirements. So we believe that we are further in the let's say earlier in the value chain, or where people are actually coming together and thinking of what should be my use case, or what's actually like what we hear from Stefan. There's hundreds of use cases at an SBB, and it's really about the collaboration space and getting people together to develop their use cases in a standardized way. Because like IDM is there, so everyone can do use cases per IDM, but there is no environment to do it, or you are like Royal Haskoning or SBB and set up, and that's pretty expensive, or it's not like you don't do this like by tomorrow. So to have like this whole environment to have an IDM conform technical environment to produce those use cases, it's like we have like SBB and Royal Haskoning doing this, but everyone else can't do that. So that's really the question there. The point we're at. So yeah. Min, thank you for coming.
I am project in Hong Kong where we use IDS.
I think you need to speak up a little bit.
Sorry. We did a project in Hong Kong where we use IDS for checking models. And honestly, personally, I know UCM is there, but we didn't really look into it. First, it's I guess a fairly new standard, and then we didn't think much information was there. So what we did was we mostly relied on GitHub to search examples, and I think UCM in terms of explaining ITM and APM and that processes, even within our team at the beginning, we were debating whether fleshing out this BPA and diagram is necessary or not, because it was pretty obvious the entity type properties that we needed for a certain use case was pretty obvious, and laying out the diagrams was just taking time for us. So we just jumped directly into the development using the GitHub examples. And that's our journey into the actual prototyping. And one example that might be helpful, I think, is regular expression. I think IDS, one of the very good parts that has been very helpful for us is the regular expression, but just to check the naming conventions of the objects and property values. So in addition to IDM XML, IDS XML files as an example on the website. If you have more examples of regular explanations on the website, that would be great.
May I add a comment, additional comment? Here's a use case we talked about. We have two main components from IDM, right? We have a process method we mentioned. It's indeed not so easy for within the company or the working group to we're talking about domain experts. They know how to build an example, how to build a house, the builder, a contractor will come. I know this and this. So we want that information to be shared with others so they know how to build a house like other contractor in a BIM conform way. So this will be transferred in the BPMN so they will understand graphically. And each of the tasks will have their own exchange requirements, right? And you have your code, let's say, use cases. And the exchange requirements, and you create it with MVD XML or IDS. So that is not a point here. The use case is transformation of information. And against statistics, I like you started with statistics. How many of you know GitHub and use GitHub actively? 3 of you. So the rest domain experts are not developing IDS or not working with GitHub. If I will ask, we had the same issue when we had this IC 4.3 review that everyone had to join GitHub, and when we asked working groups, please guys, could you help us to review the schema and make improvements? Everyone asked what I have to do with this GitHub. Sorry, I'm an manager on a company, or I'm an architect. I don't have any idea how to work with a GitHub. So this is related. So sorry, but we will not be able, and we will definitely have this issue with all 90% of bSI community saying, sorry, GitHub is not for us. And we need something that commonly known. IBM is a good standard. It's ISO standard, and it will help to bring the results. So, and at the end, if you have your change requirement, also in Excel sheet, it doesn't matter. You can map them with your ideas or with MBDXML. I mean, map them with IFC and create your schema with the help of IDS or MBDXML. That's what my comment. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm probably gonna leave it with this, or we are undecided still. We keep going a little bit longer. Thank you really for your super valuable participation and insights. Now the Canadian chapter will open 5 new tenants, is this right?
Yes, of course.
Yes. So sales was positive. So no, thank you really so much for aid to the Canadian chapter as well for hosting us. It's really amazing experience being here. And thank you everyone for all the good insights, and it's really going to be really helpful for us for development. So, and if you have any further questions, we'll be here till Friday. So looking forward to further exchanges and places. Thanks so much.